On the show today, we're sharing 6 ways to create value-based content for any platform.
Welcome to another episode of JFDI with the two Lauras. This is the podcast where we share tips, ideas and advice to help freelance social media managers to work with amazing clients, get them great results and create a business that pays really well. On today's show, we're diving into value-led content because people always tell you to give value in your content, but no one ever really explains how, which is a bit of a problem. Whenever we're recording these episodes, we always wonder who will end up listening to the show, so we'd love to hear from you. Drop into our DMs or tag us in your stories to let us know where you're listening. And of course, feel free to leave us a cheeky little review too. Right, on with the show. Let's talk value-based content. And I think the problem with this, right, is that most people think value-added content is how-to content. But I don't think it has to be that. Like, it can be that, but it's not just that. There's a lot of other things it could be.
And there's so much how-to content out there now. Probably because of that, it's hard to stand out.
Yeah, because people are like, you've got to put value in your content. There's no value. Value. But what the hell do they even mean by that? Like, it's just like, come on. It's almost like the word value has lost any value.
Yeah.
We will warn you, this podcast is going to have a lot of information. It's going to be useful. So you might want to make some notes or come back to the show another time to take some notes to inspire your future content. So let's just dive straight in and talk about the first type of value-based content, shall we? Obviously, we've just mentioned how-to content. We're not going to go into that. Everyone knows how to do that. The first one we're going to talk about is also pretty obvious, which is solutions to problems.
Yeah, like we have to create content that solves people's problems. Because in a very simplistic way, if you can help someone, you'll be remembered for that. Like I can think of people who have created content that I've feel like I've helped a problem that I've had and I'll remember them still now.
Yeah, same.
Because it flicks the switch, doesn't it? It makes someone go, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for. This is going to help me or my business, whatever it may be. And you become known as that helpful, kind of knowledgeable person.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of content that we're all looking for. Like if we're using social media as a search engine, it's often because we've got a problem we want to solve. Whether it's like a problem like we don't know how to use something, or we're looking for something to buy, or we want ideas for dinner, or whatever it is, it's a problem we want to solve, isn't it?
Yeah, but I also think you're not always looking for the solution to the problem because you don't always know that you've got the problem.
No, true.
So sometimes the content makes you realise that that's your problem and then gives you that solution. And I think especially within like the social media world, I think that is often, should be the kind of content we're seeing quite a lot of, because I think a lot of businesses know that something's not working on their social or their ads or what have you, but they don't know what the problem is. So if your content can help them identify that problem and kind of resonate with that and then solves that problem, then you're onto a winner.
Yeah, definitely agree. Okay, so the second type of value-led content then is inspirational content. And this is the one that I know that people listening will be going, oh, but I'm not inspiring. I've got nothing inspiring to say. Because I think people feel like in order to be inspiring, you have to be like some sort of godlike creature or like a celebrity or, like some, religious person in order to inspire people, which I think is absolutely not true. But I think people kind of steer away from this, don't you think?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be that big and in-depth and powerful. It's just getting someone to think in a different way, isn't it, really? To consider something maybe they've not considered before. And whether that be as simple as, if you're a fashion business, pairing your shoes with a different colour skirt. That's a really crap example, but it's just it just makes someone think differently, especially, and in our world, from a social media perspective, there's so many things people are probably told in, 2010 about how to use Instagram, and then they're stuck in their ways with that. And you can inspire people to think differently by telling them different ways and showing them how that's worked or giving them hope, maybe.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think that you just need to kind of make people feel like they can do something. Like someone else has done this thing, so they can do it. And like giving the hope, like you just said, because when you see that someone can do something, it makes you feel, especially if they're like you, it makes you feel like you can do that thing too. And when it comes to like social media, if you see somebody else who's like you because they've got the same kind of business, or they're in the same area, or they sell the same products, or whatever it is, or they have the same problem, and then you see stories of how they've overcome those things, and they're like you, it gives you that inspiration that you can do the same thing.
Yeah.
But they have to be people who are like you, right? Because if they're just, if I saw an inspiring story from Richard Branson, doesn't mean that I feel I can do the same thing as him, because we're totally different. Like, he's a man, I'm a woman for like very basic things, but also he's a multi-billionaire and I've got a couple of £100 in my bank account. So, there's very vast differences. They have to be very similar. Like, it has to be somebody like me who will inspire me.
Which is why sharing your kind of results, and if you've got a niche, so sharing niche results about other
She's on about
clients.
niching again. She's on about niching again.
But it's where, if you've had, say you work with e-com businesses and you've had one client who's, you've worked with them, you've changed X, Y, Z, whether it be from a management client or training or whatever it may be, and they've suddenly, knocking it out of the park with their results, and you want to appeal to more e-com businesses, then sharing their stories gives them hope. It gives them that inspiration to try those things themselves, maybe. It doesn't have to be profound, life-changing, inspirational quotes either.
No.
Far from it.
No, and probably best avoiding quite a lot of those things anyway. It's like, it's the generic trying to be inspiring things that don't work as well as the, sharing a story that's just got a tiny bit of hope in it that can really help people, I think. But I think inspirational content is the one that people steer clear of. And I think it can be so strong, inspirational content. Like, it's where your social proof comes in, isn't it? And if you've got social proof and stories to share from people, like case studies and stuff, if you just think about how is this going to help somebody else, how is it going to inspire them, then you've just filled that gap. You don't have to worry about trying to be like God. Yeah.
You need to keep your ears to the ground with this one, don't you? Find out what people, well, I suppose with all of them, find out what their struggles are, so you can be that, light bulb of hope that they then see your content and go, oh my God, yes, I know I can do this now.
And I think when you know that, like, a lot of people kind of steer clear of sharing those results kind of based content because it can feel a bit icky and like a bit like braggy. But when you remember that it could inspire somebody else to make them have that hope that they could do the same thing, then it makes, that's value. That's not just you bragging, that's you giving value to somebody.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, third one then is permission-based value content, which I think a lot of people probably don't even realise is a thing. But we are all looking for permission to do things that we are unsure of. If I could think of a really good example, I would totally throw one into the podcast right now, but I can't. But if you think about like anything that you're thinking about, I'm thinking about I might want to do this, but I'm not entirely sure because what if it goes wrong, or what if people think I'm stupid, or what if I don't know how to do it, or what if I get it wrong, and blah, blah, blah. If somebody says to us, if you're thinking about doing this thing, you should go for it. This is how I did it, or this is how you could do it, or this is a tool you could use to do it.
Yeah.
And it just gives you that permission to just take that leap of faith. It's that JFDI kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, we could give permission to freelance social media managers to have the weekend off and to not check your clients' accounts. And then we could tell them how they can do that and why they should be doing that.
Yeah, totally. And then that relieves the guilt, doesn't it, for them doing it because they feel like they shouldn't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they realise, well, hang on, all these other social media managers are having a weekend off. I should too. So it kind of makes them feel like they're not alone.
Yeah, totally. It's the permission as well. Like if you've got a terrible client, and if we were to put a post up saying, if you've got a terrible client, you have our permission to fire them. Here's what you should do to make sure you replace them. Then that's like, you're like, okay, phew, I don't have to work with these awful people. And then now I've got a plan to go and get rid of them.
Yeah. And you have our permission to increase your fees.
Basically, anything you want permission for, come to us and we'll give it to you.
Yeah. And we'll create some content.
Nice. Okay, number 4 then is clarity content. And I think, especially with social media and creating social media based content, we often feel like there's so much content like this out there that in order to make us look really good, we have to share really complicated ideas and we have to kind of overwhelm our audience a little bit and blow their minds a bit so that they see that we are amazing. Whereas actually, that just causes confusion and overwhelm. And if you did the opposite and you took something that was already complicated and made it really, really simple, then that would be far more effective because people would be like, oh my God, I didn't realize it was this easy. What else can this person simplify for me? What else does she know really well that she could make really easy for me?
Yeah, and we've touched on this before about creating content that it doesn't have to be big and complex. You can just take a small part of that and go deeper into that and give step-by-step tips or advice or, you know, showing someone how to do it, whatever that may be. But by doing so, you're taking away a lot of assumptions people make. You're taking away maybe myths that people have heard that aren't true. You know, so you're clarifying a situation, a process, a rule, whatever that may be, and it's just using that to make everything so much clearer for somebody. Again, like if like especially ads managers, crikey, there's so much clarity people can give. Clarity around meta. God, you know, it's so complicated. It confuses even us. So there's so much opportunity to put clarifying content out there.
Yeah. And it can work really well, can't it? Because that's the sort of content that people share because they're like, I knew this was really easy, but I bet you didn't. Like I keep seeing a reel at the moment and like loads of people creating this reel and loads of people sharing it saying, did you know that if you swipe left or swipe right, whatever way it is, on a reel in the Reels feed, you go to the person's profile. Like that's the most simplest tip ever. But yet it's basically going viral because people share it, because people save things like that, because it is so like simple and creates such clarity. And people then comment saying, oh my God, I didn't know this. And they tag in other people saying, did you know this? Did you know that, Laura Davis?
I found out something this weekend that I didn't know was a thing. Do you want to know what it is? It's not social media related.
I want to know anyway.
So I was talking to my friends about how I prefer having like emails or WhatsApp because I can leave things marked as unread and then come back to it later when I've got time to process all of that. So I hate it when someone messages me in iMessage. Now you're going to say, oh, I need that. So they'll message me on the iPhone and I read it and then I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, I'm going to forget that. If you swipe across from the left, so left to right, you can mark it as unread. Did you know that?
Well, I don't really ever use iMessage. The only person who ever messages me is my mum. So no, I didn't know that. But don't all apps with like messages like that do that?
Well, maybe that's been around forever, but I've literally never known that. And it's literally made my life so much easier.
There we go.
Yeah.
Top tip, put that on a graphic. Shove it on a reel, we'll go viral later.
That is the kind of thing that would go bonkers on TikTok.
Totally.
Anyway, after that little interlude. Okay, so number 5 is connection-based content. And we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, and it's about making people realise that they're not alone, that there's other people potentially having that same problem or, you know, having the same frustrations or getting similar results or not, as the case may be. So it's about content that people realise that they have connections with other people, that they're not alone.
It's that content where you go, oh my God, that's so me, isn't it? Or someone shares it and goes, this is you. Like connection-based content works really well for us, doesn't it? Whenever we put a post about how shit life is as a social media manager, people love it.
Yeah, and the comments are always like, oh my God, I've been seen. Oh my God, this is me. Like, how did you know? Are you watching me?
Yeah, totally. And there's loads of ways that you can do this. Like we often do this in like a funny way, often with like a funny meme maybe.
Yeah.
But you could do it by like sharing messages that you've had from other people, by sharing your own story. Like if you share your own story and your own struggles that you're going through, if they're related to your clients, and remember, it's got to be a struggle that your client can relate with. It's not about, oh my God, I'm so busy, I'm so stressed out. That isn't a good struggle to share. But, a struggle that is relatable with your clients, then that builds that connection, doesn't it?
Yeah, even if it's just sharing, like, if you've had loads of DMs of people kind of saying the same things, you can just share those DMs, obviously with permission. Say, look, all these people are feeling like this. And then you can obviously help to solve that problem in whatever way you want to.
Yeah, totally. Like share a solution or share how you've solved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love connection-based content. It's the kind of content that I will always send to somebody. We will send each other content like that all the time, won't we? And it's the sort of thing that I will screenshot and send to my friends as well. It's like that connection-based stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And it's really shareable.
Yeah. Although, interestingly, I was walking the dog yesterday with my friend and she said, oh, remind me later to share. This is not related, but it kind of is related. She was like, remind me what later. I want to show you a reel I saw on Instagram because it's just something you should do. And I was like, okay. And then it was a bit later she remembered and she got her phone out and she said, here you go. I was going to tag you in this, but it's really annoying, isn't it, to be tagged? So, and then she just showed me this reel. And I just thought that was so interesting that she would rather see me save it. So she saved it for the purposes of showing me, because it's not relevant to her. It's only relevant to me. It's about being a mom of 3. And yet she'd rather do that than just tag me in it. And I was like, you really could have just tagged me in it. It's fine. And she was like, oh no, it's really irritating. I just thought that was really interesting.
That's so weird, isn't it? I love hearing how muggles use social media when they don't work in social media. It's so fascinating.
Yeah. But it is interesting, because, we, for example, like you say, we have a lot of this connection-based content and I wonder whether people tag other people less, and therefore, because they don't tag people less, are they sharing it to their stories more, which is less kind of intrusive into people's, they're not getting a notification, but they may see it if they watch their stories.
Yeah.
It's really, I love all that kind of stuff, how people actually use social media, because my perception is different, clearly, than my friend. And she may be weird and a one-off.
Was it something like informative rather than funny?
No, it was one of those funny ones where, when you have 3 bowls in front of you and it says, which of your child is your favourite? And you dunk them in the water. And which of your child is the messiest? And you dunk. And I was like, you could do that with 2 children. And then we discussed what a pain in the arse our children were. So the conversation then went off on a bit of a tangent. But no, it was just a funny thing. There was absolutely no value whatsoever. Although the value in it would cheer me up.
Yeah, I just wondered if people are more likely or less likely to share something or tag something based on it being funny or educational or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, fascinating. But that does bring us on to the final one, number 6, which is the entertainment-based value content, which can be humour, but it doesn't have to be. Like if you think about what people are doing, why they're on social, they're looking for entertainment, aren't they? And entertainment isn't always humour.
No, it's just to keep them entertained. And we're all slightly different, aren't we, as to what, like I watch my daughter and what she watches when she's allowed her 15 minutes of TikTok. And it's weird what she likes, all that ASMR, is it?
I can't bear that.
Yeah.
Like, can't you just put things in the drawer quietly? Do you have to make so much noise? Just don't get it.
Yeah. Whereas obviously some people go on and like more kind of education, like they want to read about things, they want to learn things, they want to find out about people, they want to listen to news debates on Newsnight or whatever, like on their socials. Whereas to me, I haven't got the attention span for that. I just like quick and dirty, funny stuff. Not dirty, I think dirty.
But I think like the entertainment could be in any sort of genre. If you think about like Netflix, right? There's all sorts of different genres on Netflix. We've touched on humour. Think about drama. Do you remember the lady on TikTok who was talking about Who the Fuck Did I Marry? Yeah. Drama. There's tragedy. When people are like gone missing and all of the content that's about that is tragedy. We're looking for all of those sorts of like emotions and genres of content, aren't we? The same as we are on social media. Like the action based. My husband will watch so many bike videos, and I would say that they're kind of action based videos. And it's all those different genres. So if you're like, oh God, what kind of thing can I do that isn't funny? Go and look on Netflix and see what genre there is. And think about the trauma of using Ads Manager or losing your ad account. Or like the horror of creating a reel for ages and then you lose it because it's not in your drafts anymore. It's all of those sorts of things, isn't it? And you can turn those into value-led content.
Yeah. It's quite difficult on the old tragedy thing.
I don't know. I think it's quite tragic if you lose your reel. You spent hours on it. That would make me cry.
Yeah, but then I think that's more humour, isn't it?
Well, yeah, maybe.
or maybe I'm just a bit dark.
It didn't feel very funny to me.
But then it's more connection based because people can relate to it.
Totally. Well, that kind of wraps it up, doesn't it? All of these things, you can kind of merge them all into one, can't you, to make them really valuable, high value content. And I think that's when people are talking about high value content, they're not talking about it's like step by step how to do something really like in depth. They're talking about it has all these things. It has the emotion. It has the connection. It is shareable. You know, it gives you permission to do stuff. It inspires you. It solves a problem. It's all of that all in one, which could be a bit overwhelming if you're going into your Canva.
It's providing the content that your audience wants at that particular time, which we don't know. No one knows what mood anyone's in, whether they want to be picked up or whether they want to be educated or whether they want to have kind of step-by-step instructions or whether they want to be seen to be part of, you know, all of that. No one knows what people want, which is why we have to have that variety of content, and we can't just all of our content be step-by-step how to do things, because that's not what everybody wants all at that time. And it's trying to find the right content at the right time. And sometimes it's you sticking a pin in it, aren't you? It's luck of the draw that your content hits at the right time. And sometimes some of this content is about being timely. And, you know, if something's happened in the world of social media, it's about kind of striking at that point rather than a week later. Because it's the same old Mozza in his cardigan comes along and rolls out a new feature.
Good old Mozza.
And the response to that from business owners is, oh my God, here's another thing. I don't know how to use this. What's the point in this? And then you don't respond to that for another couple of weeks. It's better to respond and be as timely as possible. I don't mean you literally have to go out while he's still live on Instagram and create some content, but it has to be fairly timely, because if you don't, then somebody else will.
Yeah, totally.
And you can do it again later. Like, now what do we know? Like, you know, like we've done podcasts when Threads rolled out, you know, this is what we think about Threads. We've done another one subsequently of what we now think about Threads. And it's the same thing. It's, you know, there's just because you promoted it at the time that change or new thing happened, it doesn't mean you can't keep talking about it and talking about it in different ways to tackle all of these different things.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like you can do the how to do something, like is the solving problems. What happened when so and so did this thing? You can do this thing. Here's how you can do it. And then the clarity of step-by-step things, and then the humour of this is what happens if it goes wrong. You know, there's so many different ways that you can talk about the same thing. Which brings us quite nicely into something we wanted to give you today, which is our remix guide. What?
I said that was very smooth.
I should be on some sort of TV show, I'm sure. Our remix guide. If you struggle with this and you wonder how you can kind of reuse different types of content and different ideas and different messages, then head over to thetwolauras.com/remix and grab our remix guide, which is an in-depth guide, training, whatever you want to call it, and to help you to do all of that. The link again is thetwolauras.com/remix, and we'll make sure that is in the description or the show notes below as well.
Nice. Okay, so that's it. We will be back this time next week. We'll see you then.
Toodles!
Au revoir.